Welcome to Is That Homeopathy, where ancient wisdom meets modern healing. We're here to demystify homeopathy and share practical, heart centered insights for your holistic journey. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody. So, today on the channel, we are asking the question, can homeopathy treat everything?
And we get this question all of the time. Today, we're going to try to answer it clearly and honestly for you.
Yeah, because part of becoming an empowered home user is knowing both the scope and the limits of what homeopathy can do. We're really big on making sure that we stay in our lane as homeopaths.
Right, so let's start with the short answer. No, homeopathy cannot treat everything. Nothing can. No system of medicine, whether conventional, homeopathic, herbal, or otherwise, is perfect and all powerful.
But honestly, the longer answer is really that it does have an incredibly broad scope, and it can treat much more than people often think that it can, especially when we're following the rules of classical homeopathy.
And we're going to break that down today. We'll observe when it works, when it's not enough, and how to know the difference.
So first, let's talk about the difference between acute and chronic conditions, which is a very important distinction, particularly as a home user. And understanding this is the key to knowing how and when you can and should be using homeopathy as a home user.
So, an acute condition is something that comes on suddenly and usually resolves on its own or with support. For example, colds, teething, bug bites, headaches, things like that.
So these acute conditions are where homeopathy really shines for home users. These are the things that you can often, when you have a well-matched remedy, that you can often see a very quick response or quick results with. Sometimes it happens almost instantly, and it can sometimes also be a very dramatic shift as well.
A chronic condition, on the other hand, is something that develops over time, tends to hang around, and doesn't necessarily resolve on its own. So we think of things like autoimmune diseases, um, eczema, reoccurring infections, anxiety, and things like asthma.
Yeah, so much similar to the allopathic community for those of you that are working on making that transition. These are things that homeopathically you also um, wouldn't necessarily treat on your own. You shouldn't be using Google searches for. You shouldn't be looking up Dr. Google or remedy charts or things like that. They need professional homeopathic support. Um, and full case taking. Sometimes they also, and often, because these are things that develop over the course of your life, they often involve a long-term plan as well, in order to help peel back the layers that led to that condition ultimately.
So, if your goal is to support the body through an acute event, homeopathy can do amazing things. If you're trying to cure a long term issue without training, that's where you're going to need a little extra support.
Yeah, so with that in mind, a few of the things that you could look at treating acutely with homeopathy at home would be things like fevers or ear infections, coughs and colds, stomach bugs, bumps, bruises, bug bites, burns, teething pain with little babies, and even things like motion sickness. And there is even kind of a gray area with some emotional disturbances or grief that's more of an acute type situation. So
Mm-hmm.
think like if you witness a terrible accident, you could treat that acutely before that really settles in down through the layers as well. Um, but that emotional grief one is one you kind of have to be a little bit careful with. And if you're unsure, it's probably best to contact a professional to see if it's more of a chronic emotional disturbance or if it is more of an acute emotional disturbance.
For sure. And these are all of the things where we can see change within minutes or hours when matched with the right remedy. So it is fast, safe, and incredibly empowering for families to learn this modality.
Yeah, and even under professional care, even homeopathy can support chronic conditions or
Mm-hmm.
even serious conditions. You might hear this referred to as chronic care or constitutional care. If you hear spend any amount of time with a homeopath, you'll hear the word constitutional thrown around. And the more chronic conditions are treated constitutionally as opposed to acutely.
Yeah. So homeopathy does have a range. Um, and using it means using it responsibly and knowing your role, knowing when it's something that you can handle, something that's easily able to be matched and treated at home, and then also knowing when to call a pro.
Yeah. So just to be clear with this, there are some things that homeopathy can't and probably shouldn't do. So it cannot set a broken bone. It can't go in and surgically remove things from your body. It can't necessarily replace insulin in a type 1 diabetic. And it also can't make up for things like poor nutrition or living in an unsafe environment.
Right. And so this isn't a weakness within homeopathy, it's just the reality. Homeopathy is a therapeutic system, it's not an emergency room, it is not a scalpel.
But what it can do, even in those cases, such as a broken bone or surgeries, it can support the whole person. It can ease the pain. It can help improve outcomes post injury or post surgery. It can calm the fear. It can reduce the anxiety associated with those instances. It can improve sleep and it can strengthen the overall vitality or your overall well-being that helps your body heal. Um,
So, how does one know when to use it? This is where getting familiar with the system, giving yourself the resources and the information to learn a little bit more about it will boost your confidence in knowing, is this something that I can handle? Do I need to seek outside help? And that is how we use it in a responsible way.
Yeah, so if you have, I guess first and foremost, if you have any doubts, phone a friend, phone a professional homeopath. And they can help guide you if the symptoms are severe, if the symptoms are worsening, or it's not
Mm-hmm.
improving with your remedy. Don't hesitate to seek help. Don't hesitate to reach out and seek help. That's not failure, that's wisdom and that's learning. That's how you learn the system.
Right. And if you are dealing with something more chronic, whether this is a physical issue or an emotional ailment, it is time to work with somebody that is fully trained in classical case taking and not just remedy matching.
Yeah, we're big fans of doing what works around here. Sometimes that's a remedy, sometimes that's a remedy, and maybe a medical doctor or a counselor, or maybe a change in your environment.
Yeah, and this is not just about being anti conventional medicine, it's about knowing our tools and knowing how to use them properly and wisely.
So, can homeopathy treat everything?
The short answer no, but it can treat a lot of things. And some things even better, deeper, and more holistically than some of the other systems out there.
Yeah, I think the key really is to know what you're treating, who you're treating, and when to go deeper with it.
And if you've ever had a moment where homeopathy worked like magic, be sure to tell us in the comments. We'd love to
Yeah,
hear
make
it.
sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss our next video.
Yeah. Thank you. See you next time. on Is That Homeopathy. Thanks for tuning in to Is That Homeopathy, where ancient wisdom meets modern insight. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might be curious too. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to explore, drop them in the comments. We're here to keep the conversation flowing. Until next time, stay curious, stay balanced, and remember, healing begins with awareness.